I know it's tough to sort of take a lot away from this game since you guys might be having shifted your focus to the play-in already, but what did you make of Keaton's performance today?
Well, I think it's what you take from a game like this, at least right now in my mind. I think what Keaton did, the reason that he did it is because of the way that we play. And when you spend as much time as we have, talking about playing with the pass, playing with pace, spacing, second actions, movement, all those things in the offensive end, when you see a group come out and attack collectively, good things happen. And that's what I felt like, occurred. It didn't feel like he was hunting anything or doing anything extraordinary, trying to, put up some kind of production. He just fell into it. And, I think that on the last game of the regular season, to feel that, I think is good for our guys to understand that that's the work that they've put in to continue to, you can always be better. But that's how it felt to me.
And then you guys have a day to kind of collect and get ready for Orlando again. What do you hope to kind of work on in that game, or that practice, before Tuesday's playing game?
Well, right now, I'm ready to go get in the car and go home and watch the film. And, there's obviously, over the course of the last few days, this game, both teams looked at this game a little differently, obviously, and all that. There's an evolution of a game plan that gets put in, over a course of time at some certain key moments, whether it be watching film tonight, meeting tomorrow, being on the court. There's a number of touch points that you have, and that's what we use those for.
Hi, Coach. This is Ike from China Hawk. So we have finished our regular season this year, and for our rookie Zachary Richardson, and we know that he's a strong candidate this year for winning the Rookie of the Year. So, what impressed you most about him this year so far?
Wow, it's tough for me to. I know that's always kind of how the questions go. We want one things or three things, right? But I think my answer is really the same as it's been consistently throughout the course of the season, even when we didn't have objective numbers to focus on. As far as his work ethic, his passion, his competitiveness, he's got an approach to the game that's reflective of his character and not of his age. And I think because of that, we've just seen steady progress throughout the course of the year. And I give a ton of credit to our players, and I give a ton of credit to my coaching staff. We pride ourselves in being a developmental program. Those are words, culture, DNA, development, style of play. Those sound nice, but you really, your actions are what lend those things meaning. And when you see a guy shooting, 40+% from three, I don't know, you guys know all the data. When you see Dyson Daniels and what he's done, not defensively alone, but what he's developed offensively as well. You see the time that Mo Gay has spent, over the course of the last two seasons, injury, coming back from the D-League. That's work. And that's work from a coaching staff, that's work from the players, and that kind of alignment. When you see what's happened with Onyeka, from February on when he's been a starter. So I know you asked me about Zach, and I'd be remiss for not saying the same things about a number of guys, Keaton Walls. I just think it's something that I have tremendous respect for both our guys, and that's how our staff's set up, and that's who we want to be. We want to get better individually and get better collectively. And when you talk about player development, there it is. And it's not a singular event either. We have every expectation that guys will, every day, every opportunity. Zach's going to go watch film tonight, and he's going to see a transition situation where there's space on the floor and there's three guys, and I want to see him hit that gap and get to the rim on one dribble. And, you know, I think it's a matter of time before he's doing that too. Every one of our guys has situations like that they're looking at. You know, Dyson's been getting in the paint better than almost anybody in the league. Well, lately he's gotten in there and he can be more efficient. He's turned the ball over too much. He needs to hear about that. And the maturity that our guys have to be able to take that constructive criticism and have it translate into their work and improvement, to me, is really the story about those guys. And that's why I always talk about competitiveness and passion and character, because those are the tools, in addition to the physical tools, that allow guys to get better. And, you know, if you'd have told, you guys know, how many games we're supposed to win this year, and you factor Jalen Johnson out of that, and you know, 6 of our top 7 guys at the beginning of end of last year, earlier this year, what this group has accomplished is pretty impressive. To finish the season with 40 wins, given the change and the adversity that they've gone through, and it goes to their development, and it goes to their, you know, determination and their ability to take adversity and turn it into opportunity.
I apologize for not asking this in pregame because I didn't realize that Onyeka had been ruled out then. But I wanted to ask you, you know, when he took over in late January, whatever it was, you said something like, "We want to see what that looks like when he starts."
Mm-hmm.
Now that you've gotten to the end of the regular season, and you know what he did with, you know, a number of front court guys out, what did it look like? What did he do in the last few months?
Well, I think we knew what it would look like. We wanted to see what it looked like with everyone, and you know how effectively we could play a little different way. And a couple big things happened. A lot of talk about his shooting, and I've mentioned this. You know, for him to get 6 threes up instead of 3, I think is significant, and that just takes comfort in time and finding those situations. I think that's a big thing for our team because of the spacing. And then his ability to make play. He likes to pass, and he's got really good instincts and feel. So when there is more space like that, he's able to take advantage of it. I think one of the biggest things, he wants to get better. I mean, you've seen a commitment from him, not that it wasn't there before, but sometimes competition, as much as success, but failure as well. When you make shots, you feel like, oh, I can take more. When you make passes, all of a sudden guys are cutting for you. When he's getting defensive rebounds, I think that's a big thing. You know, his defensive rebounding has been something that's been good to see. So there's a lot of little things, and just kind of wrap it back to my previous kind of diatribe about our guys getting better, because he's one of those ones where that's happened.
Do you think that playing that way, and you mentioned spacing, did that spacing help Zachary?
I think any time, you know, we have some guys that are capable of running and getting to the rim. So when the floor is more open, it's harder for help to cover distance. You know, those opportunities are there. You can put pressure on the rim a lot of ways. And O can put pressure on the rim by rolling, but you put pressure on the rim by cutting. You put pressure on the rim by driving, and those things it's easier to do that when you see space.
Hey, Coach, a little bit ago you mentioned that, you know, sort of like the player that we're seeing now in terms of Veet isn't the same player that we saw last season. And I'm curious, just seeing him play through having that back injury and just kind of making up ground from where he kind of improved last season, just what have you seen as far as his confidence?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to go back further for Veet, you know, and that when he came back to us last year as an Exhibit 10 player and then won a two-way, and then made the roster this year, and was injured again, and then came back and kind of trying to find his way, and then started shooting over 50% from 3, and then hurt his back again. Veet's another one, you know, he's down there with Dyson, you know, working on his shooting. And, you know, the thing to also keep in mind about some of these guys is this is a growth process. And Veet's had his share of setbacks, and I think as much as anything, how he's handled them. And the most recent one, to your point, at Orlando, you know, you break your back, and it sounds so ominous. It was great that he was able to come back on a relative basis as quickly as he has. But another guy that, you know, we just got to stay. All those guys, just our whole team, and I don't worry about us like losing some sort of fire or hunger. But I think it is relevant that some of these younger players, you know, are demonstrating that level of competitiveness in every aspect of the program.
So, Coach,
Yeah.
all season it's been pretty consistent. The Hawks generating extra possession with this transition frequency, getting on the glass and offensive end, whatever it may be. But since the trade deadline has been a shift in the half-court offense effectiveness. Pre-trade deadline was 20th, after it's been 8th. There's always this sort of like misnomer, I believe, with the playoffs where teams don't get out in transition as much. Where's your comfortability with the half-court offense, you know, the new guys in the fold, and like just where do you think about how the half-court offense is working?
Well, I think you have to take it one step further because playoff numbers are very, very skewed to matchup situations. It's not to say what you're not saying is true. I don't know what the margins are between offensive efficiency and half court. I know we need to run. A lot of the times we've lost, it's because we've turned the ball over and haven't got defensive rebounds. So that all makes sense to me. I think in a playoff situation, you're absolutely right. The game can slow down, and the key is to generate good shots. You know, for us, as for other teams, there's shots for us that are good shots, and there's shots for another team that are their good shots. And you know, that's where the efficiency lies. And I think your players really committing to that. It is harder to run in the playoffs. You know, there's more preparation, and when you play a team multiple times and they know what you're doing more, it gets more physical. You know, there's a lot of things that go into it, but that doesn't mean you say, oh, we can't do that. We got to do something else. You know, I think there's a clash of wills there in certain respects, and also understanding that your half-court efficiency is important. You know, those numbers for me are always hard. You know, 8, 20. I just know how we're playing right now.